All right, here we are, right on time. And it's time for Town Hall meeting number 136. It's March 4th, 2025. And today we are being joined by Esther, Alfred, Ashley, Eric, Kevin, and Vanessa. We are starting on time, so it's a little small group. I expect some people to drop in over the course of the call. As you can see on screen, it's a relatively concise agenda, starting off with a couple of mentions. And after that, we have quite some room for a topic by Esther, who requested the agenda item on community governance, a retrospective and next steps for 2025. If there's any time remaining after that, we can have space for open topics. And yeah, before we dive in, a quick reminder on what the ambassador program is and what we're doing. Basically, we're a group of like-minded people that are all quite in tune with the Singularity net ecosystem's mission and vision, and that want to contribute to it and help it grow. And we have a wide range of different self-organizing work groups. And yeah, if you're interested in helping out, we do have a work group that fits you and your interests. So do hop onto our Discord server and you'll find a how to join section there. It will explain you how to join. And a couple of mentions, starting off with Rejuve AI. The airdrop is actually live right now. This is an airdrop for AGIX token holders, and this is part of the phase 2 plan that was put forward in 2021. Basically, it comes down to a snapshot taken in April 4th, 2024, so almost a year ago. But this is right before the ASI merger took place. And basically, if you had AGIX tokens during that snapshot, that wallet you had them in is eligible for an airdrop of Rejuve tokens. There's a full blog on the Rejuve website explaining all the ins and outs. Feel free to hit me up if you have any questions. Then coming Thursday at 14 UTC during the open governance session, there will be a there will be a full event recap on well, actually, by Emmanuel and Clement, who attended the Ethiopia event. And yeah, we're still, in a way, figuring out how to properly have people attend events. And so, yeah, it will be a bit of an event recap, but also, yeah, we're gonna have to learn some lessons, right, for how to go about this in the future. Then earlier today during governance work group, we figured out it would be nice to already share about this. There will be a session on Thursday, the 3rd of April, where we'll discuss minimum budgets and how work groups can approach this. So we're looking for some work groups that before that time, and it's almost a month away still, but it's good to prepare a bit. So we're looking for work groups that yeah, are willing to take a proper close look at their budgets and implement a minimum budget approach. And this is not to say this will then become their budget. Think of it as an exercise. And yeah, then we can just share the learnings and hopefully help some work groups with their budgets. Then coming Friday at 17 UTC, thanks to Kevin, we'll have a session on how we as ambassador program can support Mindplex. And Rui Tsagaye, the CEO of Mindplex, will also be attending. So yeah, looking forward to that one. Right now, it's not in the calendar yet. I will do this right after the town hall. And also, there will be a couple of reminders on Discord about this session. And I think that covers the mentions. It is. Then we get to the, yeah, more or less main agenda item for today. Well, I think most of you know Esther by now. Esther Falfi, decentralization lead at Singularity Net. She approached me like, well, can I have a slot on the town hall to discuss community governance? And yes, You can, most definitely, because it's a greatly important topic, of course. So yeah, thanks for requesting that. And if you want, the floor is completely yours.
You. Yeah, it's really nice to be able to have this session. I'd like it to mainly be a kind of discursive session. I don't have any slides or anything, um, mainly because uh, I really wanted to hear your opinions and your voice on what's been happening over the last year or so, how you felt about the blueprint progression and the the past supervisory councils, plural, not just the last one, but the one before that, and what you think the next steps should be for governance going forward. What is it that you actually want governance to look like going forward in SingularityNet? So I realize that I've just stacked a bunch of questions one on top of the other, so I don't expect you to answer all of them at once. Um, I just wanted to take the temperature of the ambassador program, and I'll be going to the other communities as well and talking to the internal foundation teams. It's just taken some time for the dust to settle after the ASI token merge and the new product roadmap and various factors coming in very quickly. Lots of changes happening at Singularity now over the last months, and I've been taking stock and thinking about a new policy that would precede some sort of decision on community representation. So, why don't we start with the ambassador program's current status and what sort of governance process do you think would be useful going forward, and what sort of agency to do what sort of functions would you want within the ecosystem? And that's a big question. Like, I don't expect everybody to kind of jump in with fully formed ideas about, oh, this is how we want governance to go forward. But what do you feel is going well in the ambassador program? How can the ambassador program be supported? And what kind of community representation might facilitate that?
That is an excellent question. I love that you let off with a big question like that. So, yeah, what sort of agency would I like? I mean, I'm talking so what I like move forward. And I like agency to get things done. I mean, maybe you've seen some of the things. I do enjoy being able to just pick up and like actually feel like I'm accomplishing things. And in some senses, I think there might be a little bit of that maybe the ambassador program has trended into too much of a bureaucratic sort of organization that possibly could prohibit some people trying to just go out and get things done. I know everyone's trying to figure out how to do events and in-person um, interactions, and I think that's going to be a big thing for moving the ambassador portion of the ambassador program forward. Every organization needs bureaucracy, but we also need some people just who are willing to go out and sort of get things done. I know Emmanuel just went to Ethiopia, which I was super proud about. You know, I love that he took the initiative to go out and represent Singularity Net, and I'd like to see some more of that moving forward. Um, you know, consensus is huge, and I think we maybe have to find quicker, more smaller ways to get that consensus for certain projects. Um, yeah, but I would like to see a little bit more outreach, you know, in-person grassroots outreach. It doesn't even necessarily have to be at um, technology events because AI touches on everything in the world. You know, you can go to a farmer's market and talk about how AI can help them. You know, if you put together, and that's a pretty low cost endeavor, that sort of thing. But getting out in the world and giving people agency to make a difference and showcase and promote AI and the future of AI and beneficial AI in their communities, or you know, go for the bigger ideas and get them, allow them to feel like it's okay to ask for, you know, some support from the ecosystem to really get out there in the world and say, hey, we're Singularity Net, we're BGI Nexus, we are here. This is us, come and get involved.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks for that. That's really interesting. So it's a kind of doing for you. For you, it's governance is facilitating doing action, taking action, and getting resources to get things done. Um, I have some thoughts about how we might move that sort of thing forward and how we could create kind of more momentum within the decentralized communities. But before I move into any of that, I'm just wondering if there is anybody else who would like to address the kind of very broad question that I asked. I swung big in that first question, but it's really an open floor to discuss any matters really to do with the kind of community-wide governance. I mean, I don't really get too deeply involved in the internal workings of the decentralized groups themselves. Like I don't get into the governance of the ambassador program because I feel like the ambassador program should have the agency to decide how they do things internally. So really like what sorts of structures and processes could really support the ambassadors and also potentially deep funding as well and any other new groups that might emerge. What does that look like for you? I noticed that there is sometimes an absence of signaling from the foundation about what would be valuable for the different groups, but I'm wondering if you've noticed anything else that you would like to emerge to support you.
This is your cue to step up and speak up. I'd be happy to give a bit of my perspective at the same time. Yeah, I'm a bit biased, I guess, as in not purely community member anymore. So yeah, would be good to have community input.
Hey, Emmanuel, do you have any thoughts on this? You got some pretty good ideas, buddy.
I'm not sure who's with us right now. Is he asking for a little recap of the question, pretty much? And Emmanuel was typing something out. Fair, fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, how can we develop, what are the optimal processes and structures we can evolve to support the decentralized groups? Like how can we support the ambassador program in developing new things, new ways of doing things, new ways of resourcing, new ways of governing? I realize that some people are going to be in the chat because there are sometimes connectivity issues. Sometimes my own connection is pretty fragmented, so I'm happy to be patient. And I won't jump to another topic because if I jump to another topic, then somebody might be typing something about the previous topic. So I'm happy to wait a little bit for people to contribute and jump in via the chat.
I think, from my perspective at least, the main thing is even enabling the program, right? This is something that the foundation is doing, and which is without it, we wouldn't be here, basically. We have, as you mentioned, we have internal agency. Even on work group level, there's pretty much full decision-making power. I'm inclined to say pretty much in there, but it might actually be completely full. Outside of budget allocations, which there's interdependence, of course, between work groups. And yeah, to me, that being facilitated by the foundation. That to me is the biggest thing they can even do in the first place, right? Kizzy, if
You mean,
oh, sorry.
yeah, go for it.
All right. Sorry, guys. Just to add more context to the question. So, if I'm to understand what you're saying, are you kind of asking how the foundation basically could assist the ambassador program? Is that right?
Well, it's sort of it. So really what I'm thinking about doing, or what I'm trying to do now, is to establish what sort of governance is going to be useful on a kind of community-wide level, let's say around the ambassador program and around the funding. I don't quite want to say on top of. I mean, in a conventional hierarchical situation, you would see community level at the top, and then underneath as kind of subsets, you would see ambassador program and deep funding. But I don't quite want to classify it like that because there's no hierarchy in a decentralized structure. So I suppose what I'm thinking about doing is creating a supportive node that can facilitate but not control the other decentralized groups. And ease, create more channels of communication with the foundation, work on strategy with all the decentralized groups, do some representation. So if we had a community council, what might that look like? We're thinking about just kind of reimagining the nature of the council so that it better represents our community. Last time, because we were thinking about creating a blueprint, we got in DAO experts, and there was one AI expert. So there were two DAO experts, and there was one AI expert, but none of them were actually members of the community. And that made sense at the time because we thought that the blueprint was going to be this kind of specialist document. But in hindsight, the fact that nobody on that council ended up being from the community was kind of a hindrance in certain circumstances, and it meant that they had to do an awful lot of groundwork and understand the communities before they were able to really act. And so it seems like some sort of reimagination of decentralization in the community is in order. So that's what I'm trying to understand for the ambassador program is what would be useful right now in terms of support that a new node, or whatever name that we choose to give it is, could provide for the ambassador program. Does that make sense? Did I clarify that a little bit? Or if not, then let me know what I can do more.
Okay. You did, but just a little bit confused. So, are we speaking just the governance or general support? Sorry for the background noise.
Oh, sorry, I didn't quite hear you. Possibly because of the connection, possibly because of the noise.
Oh,
Could
sorry
you
about
repeat
that.
that, please?
All right. I said, in terms of support, are we just speaking on governance, or are we speaking on general support? Basically, let's say uh, communication, also
Yeah,
monetary
anything.
support.
And anything really, because this new community node or group could be doing all kinds of things to support, not just supporting in governance. So it could be things like providing new funding channels to start new community-wide projects, or it could be oh, we really need a dispute resolution team, or we really need a council representation to the foundation because we feel we're really not being heard, or it could be all sorts of things. So it's a very broad question in that sense. So I appreciate that it's not a very easy one to answer at this point, and I'm very happy to come back and continue the conversation next week once everybody's had a chance to think about it as well. We could even kind of start a common document to throw some thoughts together before that. But yes, so it is a very broad question, and I do appreciate that it's not a very easy one to approach right away.
Yeah, I will just give some few insights to my or basically my suggestions. So I think one of the limitations that we've had in the ambassador program, aside funding itself, is in terms of communication with the foundation. Just speaking on the marketing perspective, we have what we call community initiatives, because previously, when Judith, I don't know if um, um, Peter, Peter could also recall. So when Judith was previously the marketing lead, there was this session we had with some of the representatives from the foundation, where we actually got to submit some proposals, marketing proposals, and we basically didn't get a feedback. And also, when we also restructured the marketing group, we tried to create this communication with the foundation so that we could also push initiatives from the community in terms of marketing directly to the foundation for basically review and funding. So, but this hasn't been established. This is a limitation right now. I think one of the things that we could do is to establish this kind of I won't say communication group, but let's say have a liaison. Though Peter helps a lot of times, but also if there's a group that we could also reach out to that can relay this message to the foundation, it would help a lot, not just in terms of marketing. Also, one of the limitations that we've also faced, just speaking from the video side, video and writers workgroup side, is that in terms of social media, one thing that we do in the program is that we post our content created within the ambassador program on our social pages. So if the foundation could also like repost some of our content, um, also some of our articles give like a spotlight. This also helps grow our account basically, because it shows that there's still this synergy between the ambassador program and the foundation basically. So this is something that we could also look at. And lastly, in terms of funding, because I think the major limitation in the ambassador program right now is funding. Basically, this limits all the deliverables that each guild and work group can actually achieve within a quarter, because we have to cut down things to the operational costs just to run these groups. So there's that limitation in terms of deliverables on a global scale. Just for instance, in the R&D guild, we are to take up proposals, research proposals, development proposals, and these proposals itself are initiative that could also be pushed to the foundation. But one thing that we noticed going forward was that we had a reduction in participation, because more members felt that the allocation that they're getting from the ambassador program is quite not sustainable basically for the kind of initiative they want to run, and so they have to just make that shift to deep funding. I don't know if you get what I mean. So this is also a limitation, and not just R&D gives. So many work groups can't actually maximize their potentials due to the limitation due to funding. So yeah, these are some of the suggestions that I can give.
Yeah, yeah, I got you. Okay. That's really, really useful insights. Thank you very much. So just to recap on what I heard. So I heard that the communications need to be a bit better established between the foundation and the ambassadors, potentially by some sort of liaison or group. It would be helpful if the foundation could support the ambassadors to grow their socials by reposting their content. And that a major limitation of the ambassador program is funding, and that you're losing membership because, well, especially during the time when token price is really low, I guess, the work group budgets shrink and make it very difficult for people to earn sustainably while they're working in the ambassador program. Yeah, I certainly appreciate that. All of those, especially the material constraints.
Yeah, and
Go
also,
ahead.
sorry, and also another thing that we could also do is also spotlighting the deliverables from the ambassador program. I don't know if the foundation could also do that, because we do a lot of amazing work here, but I guess no one knows if they can't see it. So if our deliverables within the ambassador program also be spotlighted from the foundation, and people get to see that this is what the ambassador program is currently doing. These are the great stuff or the great tools that have been developed within the ambassador program. It also helps a lot. So I just wanted to point that out.
Sorry, I didn't quite follow you. Support what with the deliverables from the ambassador program?
Yeah, like a spotlight, more or
Us,
less. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, spotlighting the achievements of the ambassador program. Yeah. Vani, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'd second a lot of what Lord Kizzy just said. One of the things I notice is that when I say they, I mean anything outside of the ambassador program, but particularly, kind of top brass, they don't seem to know what we're building here. We're building a lot of tools, and they could be using them, and they could be supporting us by doing that. But we're also building things like governance and education and how to onboard people, and they're not taking it on. They could come to us and go, well, how are you doing it? What can we learn? But all we have is that we have to go and reiterate it in other parts of the community. We have to go to deep funding and go, well, here's what we've learnt in the ambassador program. Let's bring it to the circles and try and adapt it. And, sometimes we get eye rolls. Oh God, the ambassador program, that's not here. That's different from here. You can't bring things from here. And yeah, it just feels like they're not on our side. They need to hear what we're building and use it.
Well, just if I may, for a bit of clarification on who would that latter they be? Is that then deep funding team or deep funding community or?
No, I'm not specifically talking about deep funding. As I said at the start, I'm talking about anyone outside the ambassador program, whether it's like the SNet Top Brass or whether it's the spin-offs or whether it's deep funding or who it is. They could be using the stuff that we are doing here because it's great.
I fully agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah, noted.
I'm wondering if maybe the image of the ambassador program as being an outreach program might be partially inhibiting people's thinking of them as as people to go to when thinking about governance. So it might be that there's sort of a thinking that it's mainly to do with outreach and marketing.
Possibly, but how many times can we tell them? And it's not just about governance either, it is about education and it is about the tools that we're building.
Yeah, I think it would be really helpful to amplify what the ambassador program has been doing and what they have been achieving. But I think it needs to be more than a few paragraphs in the quarterly reports. I think it would be really good to see if there are ways to spotlight in the blog any kind of innovation and articles that can be written with that main blog in mind might be really helpful to start to try and bring that into the kind of wider ecosystem vision. Because I feel like there is a lot of siloing with the ambassador program and the foundation. There is a big gap there, a communications gap. And I wonder whether there are just some easy and low-hanging fruit to reach for that might be able to close that gap.
Yeah, fair. Just a minor comment on that. The monthly ecosystem newsletter, the wrap up, let's say, that does have a community spotlight, which over the past we have used a couple of times. But it would be great if, let's say, someone from marketing team tells the one that's writing the newsletter to include whatever marketing feels that should be highlighted, right? So some of this, yeah, that would be low-hanging fruits in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking also some dedicated blogs as well, because some people just don't read all of the publication. Like things like the quarterly report and the newsletter are quite good for kind of broad reach, but I also feel like some people will just like just not get to the part that you want them to, with the things like, unless you foreground, like put the ambassador program at the top sometimes or something. We don't really control the sequencing of the newsletter, but yeah, I think maybe even having some single, ambassador focused material going out would be really good. Especially if you can spot like one or two things that, so not just a general update, but oh hey, we've solved this really difficult thing, or we've come to, this is what we've achieved in our governance moving forward, or here is a perspective on modular governance from the inside, and here's what went well, and here's what didn't go well. So kind of very, very specific topics that you're starting to become or have already become experts in, that can really focus people's attention and take the ambassador program seriously as a player in decentralization, because you have so much experience here and so much wisdom from your experimentation and from running it day to day, even just running it day to day, that it would really be great to do a deep dive into a subject that people might not be aware that you're expert in.
I think there's a lot of improvement there, for sure. We discussed it in a way as well. Like there's like for sure there's 5 or 6 topics which we can devote a full blog post on, explaining how we figured it out over the years.
I mean, I myself would be very interested to read all of those all of those things. I would love to know. I would love to know what has happened and what worked and what didn't work here, and what you've tried and what you would still like to try, and what experiments also you would like to run going forward that currently you don't have the funding for, or the capacity for, because that's something that I would really like to create new funding channels for through this new community unit or community hub, or node or something, whatever we want to call it, to be able to put more resources towards that sort of experimentation that may not be properly resourced at this time.
Yeah, to add something to that, and that might be a role to play by this hub, but might also be something we need to do ourselves. Is actually concretely taking the lessons we are learning, because a lot of things stay like on the implied level almost, or we learn, but we don't really report on the experimenting we do. I mean, I can only blame myself there in a way, but that does feel like something. Um, yeah, the like gathering the data on what we're doing and reporting on it. That has a lot of potential.
We could probably do with refreshing the ambassador page on the Singularity Net website as well, if anyone would like to help out with the content for refreshing that.
Yeah, for sure. We have writers work group, so that's a work group full of writers, right? So that should be doable.
Because yeah, I think yeah, the content on that page is probably like a couple of years old now or something, and it's quite generic, and yeah, we could definitely like have a lot more detail there, and I'll see if I can paste it into the chat.
I think it's the just the singularitynet.io/ambassador-program, right?
Yeah,
Basically the first hit on Google if you look for SingularityNet ambassadors. So in a way, there's a couple of things we can do ourselves. Also, just to come back to a couple of earlier callouts on, for example, we had when Judith was still active for us, there was a work group where she would liaise with Loic, the CMO at the time, and yeah, well, as Kissy mentioned, there was space for community initiatives, which potentially got selected by the foundation. And well, that the timing was just not great, and not blaming anybody for that, but um, Loic was kind of at the end of his stint as CMO, and Judith also not long after that stopped engaging with the ambassador program to focus on deep funding. And it did get picked up, I think, by Ace, yeah. However, then from foundation side, there was not an immediate replacement on CMO. So that just didn't quite get anywhere. And the concept itself is still, yeah, very strong. And I think we should be aiming for reviving that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if is there a resourcing issue around having a liaison on the ambassador program end?
Mm, No, from ambassador side, not so much, I would say. I mean, mostly on foundation side, it's well, with after Loic left, it didn't get picked up. Pamela is now in the marketing lead position rather than CMO. Properly overbooked. Yeah, as happens. I wouldn't purely blame it as resource or time constraints. It's also, yeah, just doing it and fixing it, basically. Vanessa?
I think some of it is going to the right person, the person who has got some time for us and will kind of support us. One of the issues for me with Loic is that he was a massive centralizer. So he was just fundamentally opposed to what we're trying to do here. So we weren't going to get that kind of support off him.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I'm just wondering if it would be worth even as we consider like who might be the right liaisons on the foundation side, um, whether there's merit to starting to put in place somebody who is a liaison on the ambassador side, because it's a bit like assigning resources, assigning budget. Things that don't get budgeted for typically don't get done. So, and I'm just wondering if somebody is assigned and if you're able to start the communication channel open on this side, and then we can focus on, with Peter, we can focus on trying to make the connection on the other side. The ambassador program might have to make the first move, but having somebody specific who says, "Hey, I'm the new liaison for the ambassadors to the foundation," might create some focus for the foundation. Say, "Oh, right, okay, let's engage." Anyway, just a thought. That's why I was asking about resourcing, because I realized that the token price is not optimal at the moment, and realize that everybody's kind of on a tight budget. So adding new functions is kind of a challenge for everybody right now.
Is this something that this new community node could be like that link with the leadership team, maybe? Esther, do you think? Like maybe
Um,
somebody community node could, I don't know, potentially go to, if not all, then some leadership team meetings and be kind of like, yeah, that kind of go between. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting, like how that relationship could evolve. I mean, it would be good to have an ambassador in that team or in part of any part of a team who is going to be interfacing with the foundation, because we don't want to put too many people in between the ambassadors and the foundation, because the more people you have in between, the more diffuse the communication channels. So it's good if people can, like, you don't necessarily want Pam to talk to somebody and that person to talk to somebody in the ambassador program. So ideally it would need to be composed of people, some people from the ambassador program. That said, it doesn't mean that it couldn't be cited there, that one possible function of the community hub or community node could be this coordinating function. But it's very open at this point, so it's whatever we need it to be. If we see a need for that sort of coordination, then that could happen. It could happen in a sort of holacratic model, that you have an overall overarching community marketing circle or pod that belongs to this kind of community layer, and then somebody from the ambassador program is represented in that pod, and so they are a natural link without having anybody in between them and the foundation. If that makes sense. It's a bit abstract without a diagram, but but I think if you're familiar with the pod structure of holacracy or any kind of pod structure, then it would be like that. I'm just reading back in the chat to see if because I noticed that there have been quite a few comments that I haven't really looked at yet because I've been discussing.
Well, just to comment on the last bit, Kizzy mentioning that he was thinking that's what I do, and yeah, that's accurate. I do. At the same time, every now and then, pitching in between, like, oh, try and use the ambassador program for this. You know, that works. At the same time, I feel having proper established communication channels where, for example, on Mattermost, uh, getting a bit more ambassadors onto Mattermost would be way better, because then there's openings for direct contact. Funny?
I do kind of get that, but I kind of think also the ambassador program lives on Discord. And, when the supervisory council were in place, it was a struggle to get them to come and speak to us where we are. One of the core things, I've been involved in community engagement for a long, long time, and one of the core things is meet people where they are, and they won't. And that's message that sends to me is they're not bothered. They want us to come to them.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Sure. I have to say, within the foundation, Discord usage is very, very low. Some are on Telegram, way more on Telegram than on Discord. Yeah.
No, I get that, but if a community you actually want to meet lives somewhere,
Mhm.
you get that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think possibly here part of the issue is focus, though. So I I unless you know who you're looking for, it can be a little bit difficult to just kind of go cold into a community. I mean, I do get what you're saying, because I don't think this is the only factor, but certainly I found myself a bit inhibited from going just into the general channels to ask a specific question, because I don't really know who I'm asking it to. Whereas when you have a liaison and that liaison says, well, I don't work on Mattermost, I work on Discord or on Telegram, then I believe that somebody is much more likely to go to their platform and seek that person out rather than just kind of posting in the general channel. So I understand why the foundation members are not really into Discord right now, but I could see a potential future where some liaison from the foundation would go there because they know what they're looking for. But there aren't people from the ambassador program already on Mattermost. So if you have a designated liaison who is on Mattermost, then I don't see any particular issue. At least, I mean, that's just my perspective for those communications to be taking place on Mattermost.
Yeah, I would say it's a bit of a difference between the just generic being in touch with the wider community or the specific liaison function. But that's my personal interpretation. Fanny, I'm not sure if you would agree with that or if it, yeah.
Yeah, sort of. I just think it's symptomatic. And I also think, in community organisation, those at the top always seem to want the community to appoint a spokesperson that we can speak to. They won't deal with the decentralized community and try to speak to it and speak to people. They always want to try and make it replicate a traditional hierarchical structure and say, okay, you need to appoint somebody to be your spokesperson to talk to us. And I've seen that from the inside and from the outside, in marginalized communities that I've been part of. This is what homeless organizations always want. And when I was homeless, it used to drive me nuts. And I'm also seeing it now from the other side.
So, what would a functional alternative look like?
I think there needs to be more coming to us. I mean, they're not going to. When you say functional, that's the operative word, isn't it? They're not going to give us. If we were a group of incredibly high-powered, incredibly wealthy AI, I don't know, if we were open AI, yeah, they'd come to us then.
So I do understand what you're saying, Vanny, and I don't. I think I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but so okay, so I won't. Here's how I'm looking at it. From the foundation side, I see a lot of people who are incredibly busy trying to build new technologies. They're trying to get their affairs in order, and it just comes down to a matter of work hours per day. It's not that we're not important. It just comes down to an efficiency standpoint, right? Like they have 24 hours in a day just like us, and their 24 hours are filled with, building AGI, building a music program, collecting biometric data, and they have to prioritize their hours in a day for their agenda. And that's a human thing. We all have to try and do that. And I don't think it's them saying we're not important or they're not going to come to us. It's just creating an efficiency of workflow. And I think that's why humanity tends to try and appoint a person to streamline the conversation from one group to another. How do we make it easier on the schedules of the people for the foundation to work with us? And I think Judith, I'm sorry, I think she asked for, Esther asked for a functional alternative. And she was happy to listen. If you have a functional alternative, I think we're all happy to listen. Until a functional alternative is presented, I think probably creating a spokesperson that doesn't say what they're looking for, but takes takes what the community wants to relay to the foundation, and it's just a middleman between the two, and it just makes things easier sometimes for both sides, so that the foundation isn't hearing 50 loud voices at once. And we can take the burden onto ourselves to decide what the message we want to get across and the information we're going to take back and forth.
To me, it's I can't help but compare Discord with Telegram, and I mentioned in chat as well. For example, Ben is relatively often just randomly when he finds some time interacting there. That kind of interaction is what makes a community, in my book at least, feel heard and feel relevant. It's not so much the once a week checking how the agenda items are doing. That kind of thing it feels more formal and more task oriented, and in that sense less connecting. Yeah, sure. Vanessa, the decentralization is about getting rid of the middleman. That's also true. I think yeah, like I said, I think there's a difference between like sharing about specific well, whatever project you've got going on, updates on that and synchronizing on that, or just being in the community. I think part of the reason, sorry to keep going on about Telegram, but it's just Ben is quite active there, especially for the CEO compared to other projects. Part of that, why it's Telegram instead of Discord, is that since the start of the project, before the project got launched, it was on Telegram. That's 2017, end of 2017, or what? So I think the Discord server started 4 years late, and yeah, it's just another platform where people need to get onto and then find their way. Telegram is relatively straightforward. It's just one channel. There's a ton of channels, but like for someone like Ben, yeah, he's mostly in the main channel. Not sure where I'm going with this, but just a little bit of context.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate Vani's point that that the that to some degree this is about the locus of power, and that that if the ambassadors were inherently a more powerful group, then the dynamics would naturally be different. Or they could be anyway. I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult to tell. Like what is it simply a bandwidth issue? Is it a status issue? Is it some combination of these things? I yeah, I see the challenge of having a middleman in a decentralized structure. I am not sure it necessarily needs to be characterized as a middleman. I mean, that link is a middleman, yes. I'm also not completely sure that it needs to be that one link. So if we're thinking of a kind of holacratic structure again, then there can be these kind of links between things, between circles. And I'm not sure that that's a centralized middleman structure so much. Maybe it's more of a kind of fluid structure where people can be rotated. So it doesn't have to be the same person every time. It could be that that person is rotated quarterly or half yearly, as long as it's clear who is doing it and when they are doing it, and like the fact that that person has changed every so often. So the channel is potentially more important than the individual who is running it, because power tends to kind of concentrated, has the potential to be concentrated, and we saw what happened when Judith left. That there's now no liaison. Partly perhaps because there was no immediate way to replace her, or I mean, was there a decision taken at that point not to replace that role, or did it just kind of fizzle out?
Well, it also coincided with Lloyd being at the end of his stint at Singularity Net, and I think that combination is what killed it pretty much.
Yeah, so it disappeared on both ends, really. That
Well,
connection
as I
disappeared on both
mentioned,
ends.
from marketing work group, marketing guild even side, there was a new point of contact in essay. So that's yeah. But then I just found myself like not. having a proper person to connect with. And then Pamela joined in as marketing lead, but also still being very busy on the event side of things, where she originated from. And here we are, more or less.
Yeah. I'm conscious that we're running over, so I don't want to infringe on everybody's time for longer than is comfortable. So I maybe just should we just sum up and recap and see whether there's any questions that we could move to next week, or is there appetite to carry on this conversation next week? Or would you prefer that I set up a separate governance call for the ambassador program specific topics? I'm going to do it. There will be a general one on governance next week on Wednesday the 12th at 5 p.m. UTC. But if the town hall is a good place, then it would be great. I would love to carry on hearing your thoughts. They're not always comfortable, but they're always very insightful, and I'm glad to have the conversation.
Yeah, to me, Town Hall of Ambassador program is a perfect place for this type of conversations. At the same time, I would also be happy to host a different, separate call for this.
It might be good, like, yeah, town hall is a good place for it as a starting point, but maybe another meeting that isn't broadcast on YouTube so people can speak freely.
Sure. Yeah, what can I say? Yeah, that's fine by me. I think we would then still have it somewhat documented. I guess we'll get to that when. Oh well.
Yeah, that's something that we can discuss how it's documented and how to make sure that people are protected. If they say something that they would prefer weren't attached to them or didn't go back to them personally.
All right.
So is the preference for both, or just to move this to a different time slot, or what's the preference? Well, I can drop a message in the Ambassador's General channel as well, and then we can, if anybody has thoughts about what they would prefer on that, then we can align on that.
Is he?
Okay, I was realized to suggest that maybe we could have this a sync call between all representatives from guilds and work groups so that we could all actually ideate on this and share solutions. Because I think we are lacking a lot of representatives right now, and I think each work group needs to be had in a way to like because they will have a different so maybe something around that. Help out.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be up for that.
I would agree that's a good approach. At the same time, also would like to note that the next workgroup syncing call is only in 3 weeks and a bit, which is relatively long.
Yeah, we don't need to wait for the next work group something for we could just give like an announcement on this and then schedule a call for it.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, well, so also noting what Esther just called out on next week. There is a session planned. It unfortunately for R&D Guild completely overlaps with their weekly slot. But that's at 17 UTC on Wednesday the 12th. Yeah, having as much work groups represented there as possible would be great, of course. Yeah, it does make me wonder
Yeah.
before that if we should allot much or have a call before that.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, come again, Peter. I think I actually get what you said.
Well, so next week on the Wednesday at 17 UTC, there's a session, not just on the ambassador program, but on all the decentralized programs across the ecosystem, let's say. So yeah, I'm not too sure if it makes sense to in the coming week to have another session, or if we should, I don't know, like based on today's calls, I think there's quite some how to call my English is failing me. So some key items we can which just would be good to have in a document, and then we can. I mean, I don't want to push it to async because relatively often putting things like that in a document and hoping for asynchronous contributions, yeah, just creates delay because there's no contributions. Not always, don't get me wrong, but there's a risk of that. I'm not sure what's the best way forward, to be honest.
I would suggest maybe a call before that, just within the ambassador programs. Ambassador program, each representative from each kingdom will just have this sit out and discuss before that Wednesday call. Maybe an announcement could go out tomorrow. I'm looking at the best time slot for this. Archives are going to meet on Wednesday, but I would have suggested that. But Thursday is a little bit too occupied. Friday the same. That's true.
I would say Monday has some space.
Yeah, Monday. Sunday, perfect.
I mean, are you talking about next Monday as in the 10th?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm unavailable for I'm unavailable for Monday and Tuesday, most of Tuesday. Tuesday evening is a possibility because I will be back by then, so I'll be available for the town hall and the slot before the town hall. So I mean, perhaps one way to do it would be to get together to have a discussion either before or after next week's town hall. Or I mean, maybe we're overcomplicating this, and we just need to continue talking on a regular basis about this. And while the kind of policy is forming, I don't have a particular allegiance to one or other format, and we can set up a call, and I mean we can try the async document and see who engages. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it we can also run a session as a kind of collaboration on that document. So we can each submit a few questions that might be worth addressing in this general space, and then in the call go through those questions, make some notes. Anyone who feels inspired after the session can come and add their thoughts into that, and yeah, get a Miro going.
Yeah, fair. That makes sense. And yes, in that sense, on which exact day we're gonna have which exact call in the grander scheme of things doesn't matter. Most important here is to well get everything clear and hashed out.
One thing that I would quite like to discuss either asynchronously or in a call, and I appreciate that it's quite good to have privacy and anonymity when talking. So maybe this is a subject for a different venue. It would be useful to think through community representation, what's gone well in the previous iterations of supervisory councils, what hasn't gone well, what could we do differently? What do you think is a good format, and what should they do? What can they be responsible for in your general eyes? I think a good reimagining of what would be a functional way to move community representation forward would be a useful thing to do at this point. Especially given the changing context, there's so much that has changed between even now and the finish of the last supervisory council in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, fair.
So that's just food for thought until next time.
Yes. So okay, right now I'm then that kind of makes me inclined to not put another goal before the 12th. If there's anybody in the room strongly feeling that's not the right approach, please do speak up. And plus also, yeah, the async document, give it a go. And yeah, I would like Teffa to run a Myra Boyd session on it. I mean, I think it's quite useful. It's a bit gimmicky at sometimes, you know, being laughed at, but I think it captures a lot of things quite nicely.
Yeah, one thing I do want to chime in and say, and I hope everyone agrees with this, is yeah, Peter, you remember this back when the ambassador program was started, or back when I got involved in it. This was started as a grand experiment. I mean, it was an experiment to create the best ambassador program in the world, and the experiment continues, and we're still figuring out the best way to create the best ambassador program. So there are going to be frustrations along the way. You know, we're going to find ourselves in maybe corners of centralization that we have to pull ourselves out of, but it's an experiment moving forward. And, you know, even with this liaison thing, if we make a liaison now, right, that doesn't mean there always has to be one liaison, but it gets things moving in the right direction, I think. And the experiment still continues from that point where we find a better way to do it. But there has to be a point we start at to make it better.
Yeah, quite agreed. I think in my book, this session was one of those steps in the process. But yeah. All right. I think, yeah, especially looking at the clock, we're 15 minutes over right now. Quick check on the room. Anybody wants to add something right now?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much for the discussion, and I'm looking forward to talking more. Thanks so much for your insights and your contributions. It's much appreciated.
Right, back at you, Esther. Thanks a lot for stepping up and, well, having this session. All right, then I think that's a conclusion for now. Oh, Cassie, I see you unmute. Go for it.
No, no, thanks for listening.
You're more than welcome. Cool. And that's it for now. Just the beginning of this, of course, but yeah, thanks for being here and sharing your time and opinions. To be continued. Should I put a quick recap of upcoming calls? You all have the calendar, right? Tomorrow, though, I will do it a little quick one. We start off with archive at 13 UTC, followed by education at 15 UTC, then followed by R&D at 17:30 UTC. And if you have energy remaining after that at 22 UTC, there's the Latam Guild. So, yeah, proper busy day tomorrow. If we're not seeing each other on the calls, then perhaps on Discord. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you, Peter, for hosting.